More than 800 executives, investors, and billionaires gathered for one unforgettable night. But
I've spent 10 years he just humiliated. Owned every person in a room.
including him.
I've spent 10 years building my career completely on my own. Unlike some people,
I didn't marry success.
and still accomplish absolutely nothing.
The grand ballroom of Seattle's Meridian Crown Hotel shimmered beneath thousands of crystal lights. More than 800 executives, international investors, Fortune 500 board members, technology founders, and financial journalists gathered for Ravencore Technologies' annual Legacy Gala. At the center stage, Senior Operations Director Ryan Walker adjusted his tuxedo before stepping behind the microphone. The audience applauded. Tonight, he had just been announced as Executive of the Year. Ryan smiled proudly, then looked toward his wife sitting quietly near the back of the ballroom. She wore a simple navy evening dress. No diamonds, no designer labels, no VIP table. Her name was Emma Walker. Most employees believed she was just a freelance interior designer. Ryan laughed into the microphone. "I've spent 10 years building my career completely on my own." The audience nodded. And unlike some people, he looked directly at Emma. "I didn't marry success. I married someone who never understood business." Soft laughter echoed through the ballroom. Emma lowered her eyes. Ryan wasn't finished. "I honestly don't know how someone can spend years around successful people and still accomplish absolutely nothing." More laughter followed. Emma quietly folded the gala invitation in her hands. She didn't defend herself. She simply whispered, "I hope tonight would be different." Ryan never heard her, because at that exact moment, every screen inside the ballroom suddenly turned black. The company logo disappeared. A single sentence slowly appeared across all 12 giant LED screens. "Welcome home, founder and sole owner, Emma Walker." The applause stopped instantly. Ryan slowly turned around. His smile disappeared, and for the first time in 10 years, he realized the woman he had just humiliated in front of 800 people owned every chair, every employee, every executive, including him. The ballroom remained completely silent. Not a single glass clinked. Not a single whisper escaped. Every executive, every investor, every board member slowly turned toward the woman sitting alone near the back of the room. Emma Walker. She hadn't moved. The enormous LED screens still displayed the same message. "Welcome home, founder and sole owner, Emma Walker." Ryan stared at the screens, then at Emma, then back again. His face lost every trace of confidence. "This," he laughed nervously, "this has to be some kind of mistake." No one answered. At the front of the ballroom, the master of ceremonies quietly stepped away from the podium. Instead, the company's general counsel, Margaret Lawson, walked onto the stage carrying a black leather portfolio. She adjusted the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for interrupting tonight's celebration, but company protocol requires that whenever the owner chooses to attend the annual Legacy Gala, the meeting immediately becomes an official shareholders session." The room froze. Ryan frowned. "Owner," Margaret continued, "please welcome the founder, chairwoman, and sole voting shareholder of Ravencore Technologies, Ms. Emma Walker." The ballroom exploded into stunned applause. Not because people wanted to celebrate, because they couldn't believe what they had just heard. Ryan remained frozen. He whispered to himself, "No, Emma's an interior designer. She told me." Margaret smiled gently. "She told everyone that." Emma slowly stood. She wore no expensive jewelry, no designer handbag, no visible signs of extraordinary wealth. Only a simple navy blue dress. As she walked toward the stage, every senior executive rose to their feet, one after another. The chief financial officer, the chief technology officer, regional presidents, international directors, even members of the board. Every single one stood. Ryan looked around the ballroom in disbelief. The executives he admired, The people whose approval he had spent years chasing were now standing for his wife. Emma climbed the stage quietly. Margaret handed her the microphone. Emma looked across the ballroom. Her eyes briefly met Ryan's. There was no anger, only disappointment. She smiled politely. "Please. You don't have to stand." Nobody sat down. Emma sighed softly. "I suppose some traditions are difficult to break." A few guests smiled. Ryan finally found his voice. "Emma, what is this?" She looked at him. "The truth." He shook his head. "No. This company was founded almost 12 years ago. You told me you worked from home. I did. You said you designed apartments. I designed workplaces. You said your clients were small businesses. They were." Ryan's breathing became heavier. "But you never said." Emma finished the sentence for him. "That one of those businesses became Ravencore." The room became silent again. 10 years earlier, Emma Walker had rented a tiny warehouse on the edge of Seattle's industrial district. The roof leaked every winter. The heating barely worked. Her office consisted of a folding table, a second-hand laptop, and a single whiteboard covered with handwritten ideas. She wasn't trying to build another technology company. She wanted to solve one simple problem. Small manufacturers were wasting millions every year because their inventory systems couldn't communicate with each other. Everyone told her the idea was impossible. Banks rejected her. Investors laughed. One venture capitalist even said, "You're asking billion-dollar companies to trust software written by one woman in a warehouse." Emma smiled. "I only need one company to believe me." She found one, then another, then 5. Within 4 years, Ravencore became one of the fastest-growing enterprise software companies in North America. Instead of chasing publicity, Emma disappeared. She refused magazine covers, declined television interviews, never attended award ceremonies. Every public appearance was handled by professional executives. The media called Ravencore's mysterious founder the Invisible Architect. No one knew her face, and that was exactly how she wanted it. 3 years later, Ryan Walker joined Ravencore. Bright, confident, brilliant with operations. He quickly became one of the company's fastest-rising managers. Their paths crossed completely by accident. Not inside the office, but inside a neighborhood bookstore. Ryan noticed Emma reading alone in the architecture section. "You know, I've never seen anyone spend 2 hours looking at office design books." Emma smiled. "I like understanding how people work." He laughed. "I'm Ryan." Emma. Neither asked what the other earned. Neither cared. Their first dates were simple. Coffee shops, weekend farmers markets, late-night walks along Seattle's waterfront. Ryan believed Emma worked as an independent designer helping local businesses renovate offices. Emma never corrected him. Not because she wanted to deceive him, but because every relationship she'd had before ended the same way. The moment people discovered she owned billions, they stopped seeing Emma and started seeing her bank account. For the first time in years, someone liked her without knowing who she really was. She wanted to protect that feeling, so she remained silent, and for a while, it was the happiest decision she had ever made. Ryan stood motionless in the center of the ballroom. His Executive of the Year trophy suddenly felt heavier than stone. The applause had faded. Now, only whispers filled the room. That's his wife. He had no idea? He just humiliated the owner. Emma placed the microphone back onto the podium. "I never wanted tonight to become about me. I came here because this company turns 12 years old today." She smiled softly. "And every employee deserves to celebrate that." Her calm voice made Ryan feel even smaller. He stepped toward the stage. "Emma, please. Tell everyone this is some kind of joke." Emma looked at him for several seconds. "I wish it were." Ryan shook his head. "But why? Why would you hide something this important from me?" Emma took a slow breath. "I didn't hide who I was. I hid what I owned. There is a difference." The room remained silent. She continued. When we met in that bookstore, you asked me one question. Ryan remembered instantly. What do you do? I answered honestly. I said, I build better places for people to work. Ryan lowered his eyes. You did. I never lied. I simply never mentioned the company's name. A reporter quietly raised her hand. Ms. Walker, may I ask why? Emma nodded. Because I wanted one relationship in my life, where my bank account wasn't invited. Several guests exchanged uncomfortable looks. She continued, before Ryan, I dated men who loved the headlines. They loved private jets. They loved luxury homes. They loved boardroom invitations. But none of them loved Emma. They loved the woman they imagined I could make them become. Ryan felt every word like a weight on his chest. Emma looked directly at him. When you asked me to marry you, I believed. You loved me. And for a long time, I believed I was right. The ballroom became painfully quiet. Then the chief financial officer walked onto the stage carrying another black folder. Madam Chair, the annual founder resolution requires your signature. Emma nodded. He opened the folder before the audience. Inside were documents approving a new employee ownership program. Ryan frowned. Employee ownership? Emma signed each page, then addressed the audience once more. Beginning next quarter, every full-time employee at Ravencore, from receptionists to engineers, will receive company equity. A wave of surprise spread through the ballroom. No executive bonuses. No special treatment. Everyone who helped build this company deserves to own a piece of it. Thunderous applause filled the hall. People weren't cheering because she was wealthy. They were cheering because she shared success. Ryan slowly realized everything he admired about great leadership, his wife had been practicing for years, quietly, without seeking recognition. Margaret Lawson stepped back to the microphone. There is one final item. The board unanimously approved this resolution yesterday. Ryan looked confused. What resolution? Margaret opened another envelope. Effective immediately. The position of Senior Operations Director is suspended pending an internal ethics review. The ballroom fell silent. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. What? Margaret spoke calmly. This review is not based on tonight's comments. Ryan looked relieved, until she continued. It concerns several anonymous complaints submitted over the last 6 months regarding workplace arrogance, public disrespect toward junior employees, and misuse of executive authority. Ryan stared in disbelief. I didn't. Emma quietly interrupted. I never ordered the investigation. I wasn't even told your name was involved. Margaret nodded. The investigation began before anyone knew Mrs. Walker planned to attend tonight. Ryan suddenly understood. This wasn't revenge. This was accountability. And for the first time in his career, he couldn't blame anyone else. The ballroom was no longer celebrating. It was listening. Every executive, every employee, every journalist watched Ryan Walker standing alone beneath the stage lights. Only minutes earlier, he had been the man everyone admired. Now, his own reflection felt unfamiliar. Margaret Lawson closed the investigation file. We want to make one thing clear. This review is not a conviction. It is an opportunity for the truth to be examined. Ryan nodded silently. For the first time in years, he wasn't searching for an excuse. He was searching for himself. Emma stepped away from the podium. She could have remained on stage. She could have let the room continue judging him. Instead, she walked down the steps until she stood only a few feet away. Ryan. He slowly lifted his eyes. I never wanted this. He laughed bitterly. I don't think you had to. I did it myself. Emma didn't argue, because he was right. Ryan looked around the ballroom. I spent years believing leadership meant being the loudest voice in every meeting, the smartest person in every room, the one everyone feared disappointing. He looked toward several junior employees sitting near the back. I thought respect came from authority, One young software engineer quietly shook his head. It never did. The words hit Ryan harder than any public insult. One by one, employees began standing, not to defend Ryan, not to attack him, but to tell the truth. A young receptionist spoke first. I remember my first day. I was terrified. I accidentally spilled coffee outside the executive elevators. Mr. Walker didn't yell, but he made sure everyone knew I wasn't ready for this company. She lowered her eyes. I cried in the restroom. Another employee stood. I stayed late almost every night. When my father was hospitalized, I asked for one afternoon off. He asked me if my priorities matched Ravencore's. Silence filled the ballroom. Then another voice, a warehouse supervisor. I've worked here 7 years. I respected your intelligence. But I was always afraid to speak when you entered the room. Ryan couldn't look at them anymore. Each memory returned, not as he remembered it, but as they had lived it. He had called it discipline. They had experienced humiliation. Emma finally spoke. Do you understand now? Why I never told anyone I owned this company? Ryan looked at her. She continued quietly. If employees obey because of fear, they're not following a leader. They're protecting themselves. She paused. I wanted people to tell me the truth, not what they thought the owner wanted to hear. Ryan slowly nodded. And I spent years making sure nobody told me the truth. Emma's eyes softened. Yes. Margaret stepped back toward the microphone. The ethics committee has reached a recommendation. The room became silent. Mr. Ryan Walker, your promotion as Executive of the Year is officially withdrawn. Ryan closed his eyes. He had expected that. But, Margaret continued, the board also recognizes your operational contributions over the past decade. We believe people should be judged, not only by their worst mistake, but by what they choose to become afterward. She looked toward Emma. The final decision belongs to the chairwoman. Every eye turned toward Emma. She held the room in silence for several seconds. Then she spoke. Ryan Walker, as chairwoman, I could terminate your employment tonight. No one moved. But I won't. Ryan looked stunned. Emma continued. Because firing you would be easy. Changing you, that's the harder choice. She took a slow breath. Effective tomorrow. You will no longer manage people. Instead, you'll spend the next 6 months working directly beside the newest employees. No executive office. No reserved parking. No personal assistant. You'll learn every job inside this company. From the ground up. Ryan's eyes filled with emotion. Not because he had avoided losing everything, but because, for the first time in his life, someone had given him something far more valuable than punishment. A genuine chance to become the leader he had always claimed to be. The ballroom remained silent, not because people were shocked anymore, but because they were witnessing something far rarer than success. They were witnessing accountability. Ryan stood motionless. The applause from earlier, the trophy, the admiration, none of it mattered now. For the first time in his career, he wasn't thinking about his reputation. He was thinking about every person he had hurt while protecting it. He looked toward Emma. I accept your decision. His voice was calm. I'll earn back whatever respect I can. Emma simply nodded. I hope you do. 6 months later, Seattle woke beneath a cold autumn sunrise. Inside Ravencore's headquarters, something had quietly changed. Employees smiled more. Departments worked together instead of competing. Ideas flowed faster. People laughed in hallways that had once been painfully quiet. On the ground floor, a man wearing a simple employee badge unloaded delivery boxes beside 2 new warehouse assistants. It was Ryan Walker. No executive office. No private parking. No reserved elevator. Every morning he arrived before sunrise. Every afternoon he worked beside new employees. He learned inventory management, customer support, equipment maintenance, reception duties, even cafeteria service during lunch breaks. The first month had been humiliating. The second month, it became educational. By the third, people noticed something different. He no longer interrupted conversations. He asked questions instead of giving orders. When someone made a mistake, he helped them solve it, instead of embarrassing them. One afternoon, a young intern accidentally dropped an expensive prototype onto the warehouse floor. Everyone froze. Ryan quietly walked over, picked it up, inspected the damage, then smiled. "I've broken things far more valuable than this." The intern looked terrified. Ryan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "The important part is learning before making the same mistake twice." Several employees exchanged surprised glances. The old Ryan would have humiliated the intern in front of everyone. This Ryan protected his confidence. 3 weeks later, Emma quietly watched from an observation balcony overlooking the operations floor. Margaret Lawson joined her. "You've been watching him every day." Emma smiled softly. "I know." Margaret folded her arms. "People are talking. They say he's becoming the leader everyone thought he already was." Emma remained silent. Then she quietly replied, "Titles create authority. Character creates leaders." Margaret smiled. "That's very much like you." Emma looked through the glass. "No, it's something Ryan is finally teaching himself." 1 year after the gala, Ravencore held its annual legacy celebration once again. The same ballroom, the same crystal chandeliers, the same stage. But this year, everything felt different. Instead of expensive entertainment, the company invited employees to tell stories. Warehouse workers, receptionists, software engineers, maintenance teams. Every department had a voice. Near the end of the evening, Emma stepped onto the stage. She smiled at the audience. 12 months ago, this room watched someone fall. She paused. "Tonight, I'd like you to meet someone who stood back up." She looked toward the entrance. "Ryan, would you join me?" The ballroom applauded warmly. Ryan slowly walked toward the stage. No luxury watch, no designer suit, just a well-fitted navy jacket and quiet confidence. Emma handed him the microphone. He looked across the room. "I spent years believing leadership meant proving I was the smartest person in every room." He smiled sadly. "I was wrong. The best leaders are usually the best listeners." Several employees nodded. Ryan continued, "I once believed respect could be demanded. But respect is something people choose to give you. And if you're fortunate enough to receive it, you should spend every day earning it again." The ballroom erupted into applause, not because he was successful, because they believed him. Emma returned to the microphone. "I have one final announcement." She looked toward the board of directors. The ethics committee completed its final review yesterday. Margaret Lawson stood. "The board has unanimously restored Mr. Ryan Walker's leadership eligibility." More applause filled the ballroom. Ryan looked genuinely surprised. Emma smiled. "But," she continued, "he won't be returning to his previous position." The room became quiet. Ryan looked confused. Emma laughed softly. "Because we've created a new one." She turned toward him. "Beginning tomorrow, you'll become Ravencore's first director of leadership development." Gasps echoed across the ballroom. Emma continued, "Your responsibility won't be managing profits. It will be mentoring every future manager. So no employee ever experiences what this company once became." Ryan's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know if I deserve that." Emma smiled warmly. "Maybe you don't. But you've earned the opportunity to keep deserving it." The ballroom rose to its feet. Not because a billionaire owner had spoken. Not because an executive had been promoted. But because everyone understood. Real success wasn't measured by power. It wasn't measured by titles, or wealth, or applause. It was measured by the courage to admit you were wrong, the humility to change, and the determination to become someone worthy of a second chance. As the applause echoed beneath the crystal chandeliers, Ryan looked at Emma one final time. "Thank you." She smiled gently. "No, thank you." for finally letting me meet the man I believed I married. Outside, the Seattle skyline shimmered beneath the evening lights. Inside, Ravencore celebrated something no balance sheet could ever measure. Not another profitable year, but a culture built on respect, honesty, and the belief that people are never defined by their worst moment, only by what they choose to become after it. The end.